Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. I know that you are in New York, in Brooklyn, New York, and I just want you to share with everyone who is listening, like, what time is it for you now?
Right now, it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday, and we just experienced this crazy bomb cyclone, like winter wonderland storm. So it's very beautiful outside and very cold.
Oh, wow. Well, listen, I'm in Jerusalem and it's 6 p.m. and we just had 2 days of snow. I don't know if you heard.
I saw
Oh,
it all over my Instagram feed, all of my friends who live there, and I was like, wow, we're having the same weather. That never happens.
exactly. I know. And I've lived in New York and I've lived in France and I've seen snow, but snow in Jerusalem is special, right?
Totally.
The whole world stops and we just look at the snow. Someone even called me and said, "Are you working today?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working. It's snowing, but I'm not working." But anyway, Rachel, I'm so happy to welcome you on the Jewish Women Entrepreneurs Podcast. I know we have a lot of things to talk about, very exciting. I want to start with reading your bio so that everyone knows who you are. And then we're going to dive right in with asking you a lot of questions on very exciting news that just happened. I just realized that, the news is really fresh. So we're going to dive right in. So Rachel is a co-founder and CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, of the world's first recipe sharing app, Manna Cooking. And that's what we're going to talk about today. After sharing bagels in Prospect Park with her brother, Josh Abady, Manna's CEO, and his childhood best friend, CTO, Guy Greenstein, the Manna Cooking team realized that there was currently no platform that provided a space for people to share, store, and edit recipes with community and customization at the top of the mind. The three co-founders decided right there, between bites of lox and cream cheese, to create a solution that would help them and others address some of the most common challenges they faced with home cooking. This idea blossomed Manna Cooking, the app that will become the first social cooking network. Rachel then named the company Manna, inspired by the miraculous food source that provided everything the Israelites needed to survive their journey in the desert. Prior to co-founding Manna Cooking, Rachel worked at the New York Times, Huffington Post, Vox Media, Red Bull Media House, and Bustle Digital Group. She grew up in New York City. She attended Barnard College, Columbia University, and majored in American Studies. When she's not working on Manna, she's probably eating a bagel or thinking about bagels. Okay, Rachel, I love that bio. So when I read the bio, the first thing that came to mind, I'm a very visual person. I don't know if anyone here, listening is also a visual person, but when I read something, I like picture in my mind. And then I saw you and your brother and your best friend eating bagels and, cream cheese and having this idea. And I really want you to take us back to this first time when you had this idea and you were like, wow, this is an amazing idea. Can you take us back there? Just like a, little camera, hidden camera?
Totally. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Hello to everyone listening. I feel like most of the big moments in my life involve food. It's where I'm most comfortable and feel most inspired. But previous to sitting on the hill in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, where I live, basically Guy Greenstein, who's one of our best friends, and Josh, my brother, we've all been close. We all went to Solomon Schechter Day School together. Our families have been close for a long time. And so Guy grew up in a house with an Israeli Moroccan mother who's a professional chef. But most of her clients, and she was a personal chef, were vegan or kosher or keto or gluten-free. So he walked into the kitchen one day and saw it looked like a bomb went off. It was like a battle station. She had Post-its, WhatsApp messages, cookbooks, links open, and she's trying to make really delicious food for people who have dietary restrictions or who are kosher. And Guy is a developer and an engineer, and he was like, "Oh, mom, there has to be an app for this. You need to be able to share these custom recipes with your clients and with us," because he's always been spoiled by her amazing food. And so he realized there just wasn't anything out there. So then he called Josh, my brother. So Josh at the time was playing poker professionally. He's always been very entrepreneurial and sort of self-motivated. And Josh had coincidentally been diagnosed with really severe IBS in his later 20s, and it just totally ruined his sort of relationship with food. We grew up in New York. We're Jewish. We're obsessed with food. It's part of our culture. It's part of how we kvel. It's part of how we kvetch. It's just food is always involved. And so he pitched the idea to Josh, saying, hey, my mom has nothing out there for her clients and family, and you have nothing out there to help you eat properly now that you have to avoid certain foods and customize your diet. He was like, I think we should build an app together. And then they were both like, okay, but we don't know anything about community building and branding. And he was like, let me call Rachel. So I had previously come to Josh because I was having like a little bit of a career existential crisis of like, I have all these skills. I've worked in media a long time, but I kind of wanted to move out of news and into food, but I didn't know where to start. And so I didn't know this, but when we were all meeting, they had come prepared to pitch me with the beginnings of this idea. I thought we were just going to hang out and sort of vent. And then, so we had bagels in the park and they pitched me the idea. And I was like, this is amazing. This is so smart, but you guys are missing like a community function of this. Like you need to have an area where like all these people who have like different needs, whether it's like 30-minute meals, kosher meals, like allergy-free meals, can like interact and customize. And so I said, well, why don't we call it Manna? And everybody loved it. And they're just like, of course, like what is manna? Manna is supposed to be the thing that like fed the Israelites in the desert and gave you everything you need to like nourish yourself. And that's the ethos of the app. Like we want to be everything you need to feel like food is easier for you. And that's like one of our taglines, like making food easy. So when we were spitballing this idea, we realized pretty quickly like, oh, we actually have like, you know, we have an audience, we have a problem we're solving, we have like something that we can prove in product market fit, like let's get started. And so Guy's dad, David Greenstein, who's our fourth co-founder, owns an incubator where he sort of incubates small startups and brands, mostly in the sort of physical product space. And so we pitched the idea to him as our first benefactor and investor and chairman of the board. And then here we are 2.5 years later. And we've turned it into a real product and business. And the app just launched a month ago.
That's what I was referring to, the big news just a month ago. Wow. I love that story. It's so organic, so natural, right? Just like if everything, you know, was bringing you to that moment and time where you had to decide to launch that app. But I want to tell you something. You know, we live in Israel, right? I mean, I live in Israel, which is also called the startup nation.
Yes.
And there is a joke here that says that, you know, with one Israeli, you have 2 or 3 startup ideas, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, that's the joke, right? So, I mean, everywhere you go, it's like, oh, I have an idea. Why don't we start a startup? Like, oh, I have an idea. I didn't, you know, I can't broom, you know, I can't find my broom. Let's start a startup. I don't know. It's like anything, you know, or everything can be the idea of a startup. And I mean, it's a joke, but really, you know, we do have the highest number. I forgot the numbers, you know, of startups per capita here. So we are, yes, the startup nation, but also I can hear also a lot of cynical people that, you know, when someone comes up with an idea, they're like, yeah, right, you're gonna make a startup out of it. Okay, you know, we heard it, okay? Or the people that are gonna come and say, out of 100%, you know, 100 startup, only 3 make it to the top, blah, 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 you know, all those statistics. So what I'm interested in, and, you know, I don't know if you know, but my audience knows I'm a business coach and I help entrepreneurs, you know, work through their ideas, work through their projects, grow and scale their business. And a big, you know, content and theme that I talk about is mindset.
Yeah.
How do we keep the mindset of, you know, when people come and say, well, of course, there are tons of apps, you know, cooking and recipes app. What are you going to come now? And so did you have this, you know, those reactions when you shared around you, you know, people that didn't believe in you, that you had to fight, or no, did you have the red carpet and everyone was like, oh, amazing idea, we're here to support you? Like, what was the reactions that you faced when you first started with this idea around you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it really is about mindset. You know, before I sort of directly answer it, I think like any startup or any business you start, you're making a bet on yourself and the people that you work with, and so you have to have a higher appetite for sort of risk. And you know, Josh, my brother, was a poker player. His business was risk. I was, you know, sort of living in a pretty stable like media career, and then Guy had graduated college pretty late and was like embarking, and so I didn't want to make a bet on myself without other people that I could trust, and who better to trust than my brother and my brother from another mother. And so when we came up with this idea, we understood already, like, it's a saturated space. It has a lot of sort of dead bodies along the way in terms of apps that have tried to do similar things that have failed. But the thing that we really understood is like, number one, all 3 of us are just so passionate about it. And I think that's part of mindset. It's like, this early, especially with a startup, like people want to invest in the founders and the people who are building the product. And something really unique is that all three of us have very complementary separate skills, and we didn't outsource anything. Like Guy, our CTO, has built the entire app, right? And like that was really important. Like we're invested. Josh and I use the app every day. I use it to cook like 30-minute meals. He uses it to deal with his like really severe IBS. And so I think the thing that has brought us the most success thus far is just like how passionate we are and also how diligent. In my previous career as an editor and a journalist, like research is my best friend. So I obsessively researched and sort of pushed everybody on our team to research like what is out there, how are we different, and why are we different? And like we invite those tough questions of like, oh, there's so many apps, like why is this different? And it's just like, okay, well, let's show you instead of just telling you. And so the answer is like the sort of binary options out there are like publishers, which is great. I love NIT Cooking, I love Epicurious, but they feed you content and then the relationship's over. And then you have like repository apps, which are just, they help you organize it, but nothing is about like customization or community. I think also we decided to make this app at the right time in terms of like technological capability. So I would say like the reactions to us have always been like, this is a great idea, but it's going to be really hard to scale. And we always say, we know, this is why we have a plan. And so I think for us, like it's more motivating than demoralizing. Like when most of the time people believe in our idea, like we've gotten this far, we've launched it, we've raised some funds, we're actively fundraising now because I think people are taking the same bet on us that we're taking on ourselves, which is like our idea. Number one, you just have to like really believe in your idea. And it doesn't mean your idea won't change. Like our idea has changed 100 times, right? But it's the sort of core fundamentals of like the problem we're trying to solve and the people we're trying to serve. And I think if you have that really solid understanding of those two things, like you will move your business along. And I think those are the two most important things. And like bet on the right people, bet on yourself, and like believe in your idea. Like so much so that like when someone doesn't, they're just not the right fit for you. And that's what that means. And it's nothing else. And you just keep moving.
Oh, I love that. I mean, you're taking the, people that are cynical and you're just turning it as a research or as a, okay, if you think this is a question, then let me show you and let me prove you. That's
yeah.
That's
and also just like there are certain things that we thought would be part of our business that aren't now, because like other people who had tried to do something, a piece of what our app does, were like, hey, like this is what we tried and here's why it was wrong. And like that's such a great learning moment for us of like, maybe this isn't possible or maybe this piece of it isn't, but at the same time, like the core functionality and the core offering still makes a lot of sense, and so far has been really successful with our current audience and like downloads and the people on the app. And so, but yeah, I think there's always going to be cynics, but like if you're an early stage business founder, you need to find people who aren't. And like, yes, startups fail all the time and more likely than not. But I also think being a startup founder requires like a healthy sprinkling of delusion so that you can get through those tough times, and just sort of
you
like,
can have that vision that takes you above and beyond. But I really like what you just said. I was invited once to give a lecture to startups, to give on the pitch, like how do you pitch for a startup? And I was lucky enough, or I don't know if it's lucky, to speak first. And so I had the first lecture, and I speak always about passion, about the born to do and what you're born to do and what is your vision. And this is what I was saying, this is what investors are looking for, just like you said, they're looking into, who is the founder and how passionate they are before they're even looking at the numbers. And I truly believe that. The only problem is that the second person that was supposed to speak after me, and he was from a VC company, like very well-known VC in Israel. And so everyone thought he was going to talk about numbers. He got up and he said, I was going to say the same thing. I have nothing to say. I also believe that it's passion. So I was just lucky to be the first speaker, because I would have had my lecture, taken away. So, so I really, I think that it's really true that people look into the passion. But beyond the passion, you said something before. You said, yeah, there are other apps and other cooking and recipes app. And I want also for our listeners also to really understand, like, how different are you? Like, what makes you unique? What makes you so special that you can say, I believe that my app can really survive, the jungle and really be of help for people. Can you tell us that?
Totally. Yeah. So, the thing, our app is really about making food easy for like day-to-day home cooks. And so the things that are special about it are a few things. One is like the technological functionality and the way the app was built in like a very modular way, all thanks to Guy, our coder, and like building it in-house. And two is just like, I think we have had the benefit of being able to watch other companies sort of try and fail and try and succeed at this. And also the community portion just doesn't exist. So for instance, when you get into our app, it's like no matter your dietary restrictions, desires, needs, like lifestyle, like the app serves you. And like that doesn't really exist in most other apps. You sort of have a niche. And so this is sort of a bet we're making that like there can be a universal platform for food. So one is we have like a Tinder-like function to the app called swipe mode. And it's the first thing that greets you when you get into the app to onboard, because we want to tease you with the kinds of like content and recipes you can see before we force you to like make a username. You know, you have to test drive the car before you buy it, right? And so swipe mode is amazing because it helps you sort of in a passive, really visual way. I'm a visual person too, just have to battle with recipes beyond the fact that most of them are poorly formatted, hard to find, not customizable as what the heck do I make for dinner tonight? And so for some people, like they just want like really fun passive options. And so, you know, my brother and Guy are in their 20s, they're on Tinder a lot. So I think they're used to the functionality. And so we put that in as a way to like just help people onboard and like get ideas and inspiration, but it's all actionable. So any recipe you swipe on, if you swipe right, you're sending like a like, kind of like Instagram, to the person being like, good job, that looks good. And if you swipe up, you're adding it to your own cookbook so that you can cook it and save it and use it later. So that's one that doesn't exist elsewhere. Two is we have the ability for you to upload your own recipes, right? Like all these other apps out there, you can save the recipes and make folders for a lot of them for whatever's already programmed into the app. And we offer that, obviously. Like we want a mix of like authoritative recipes from people you know, from publishers you know, but also like you should be able to upload your Bubby's matzo ball soup recipe. You should be able to upload whatever recipe you made in the kitchen the other night that turned out fabulous. You should also be able to like take someone's recipe for this, like, you know, chicken parm that looks great, but like make it parv or like make it work for you. And so we do that. That doesn't exist. You can't customize recipes the way that we offer. Also, every recipe in our app is in this proprietary modular format. And what I mean by that is there's no ads, there's no life story about beans, there's no scrolling, and it's all the same exact format. So no matter if the recipe comes from us, from someone who uploaded it, from one of our partners, from a publisher, it's all formatted the same so that you always know how to use it. So there's no sort of like 6 pages here, 7 ads here, scrolling here, images there. It's just exactly what you need. And then the other really unique piece is our social community that we're building. So we have what we call the Discover feed, where you can discover recipes, images, people to follow, people to like, people's cookbooks. So you can see other people's cookbooks. So instead of on Instagram where you see photos, like if you go into someone's profile, you can see what they're about, see their image, see their handle, and then also like sift through their cookbook. I follow someone in the app who's a baking fanatic, and baking is my weakness. Cooking I like because it's like you can have a lot of freedom. Baking is more like science. I am a terrible baker. And so I'm following her because her recipes are easy and achievable. And so, and that's all, and like we've DM'd since then, we've like talked to, and it's like you make connection that way. And like that's really special. So that's what's different. We're making the bet that like food, which is the most universal daily experience in the world, is also the most personal and individual, right? Like everybody eats, but everybody eats differently. And we want to celebrate that and make that easier for people. And the best way to do it is like food is about sharing, and like you can taste the love in a lot of food. And like I grew up spoiled by being in New York and having like all the food in the world that you could possibly want around me. And it's just the way that I often show love. Like I have people over and cook dinner. My friends and I have dinner parties. Like if I'm happy, I want to eat. If I'm sad, I want to eat, you know, like food is comfort. And so the best way to sort of learn and share is by building community around food. And so that's really what's different about us.
Wow, I love it. I mean, communities is really, you know, the name of the game now, right? Everyone is, you know, basing even technology and community is really the best formula. And I have to say, I just downloaded the app before the
Thank
podcast.
you.
Yeah, I did, and I really enjoyed it. I like the swiping, and I think that seeing the picture of what you're going to eat is really nice. Or what you're going to cook actually, and I also like, of course, I don't eat meat, I'm a vegetarian, so many recipes I just have to say no. But if I can customize or I can change this ingredients for another one, then it just, you know, makes it so easy. And of course, everyone today is a vegan or, you know, gluten free. I mean, this is like the whole generation of
Yeah, it's trendy. Yeah, yeah.
trendy, exactly. So yeah, I believe that that your app is really coming at the right time. And from what I understand, you also started it during COVID. Was that also something that had an incident on your launch strategy?
Yeah, most definitely. But yeah, so we came up with the idea in April 2019, pre-pandemic. And I think that's also really important about our business. It wasn't in response to the pandemic. Like a lot of successful startups have made like incredible solutions that I'm so happy exist, but like the point of this app is like we believed in this before we even knew the word COVID existed, because it's like this is missing from the market. Like there's no one-stop shop for you to be able to like find, prepare, cook, and like eventually we're building grocery to shop for food and like build community around it. So when the pandemic first started in March 2020, we're like, that's it, our business is done, like there's nothing out there for us. And then it was the opposite. The silver lining is, wait, like everyone is at home learning to feed themselves for the first time. Like we can provide value and make people and so we had a bunch of beta testers, and we launched a crowdfunding site, campaign to raise funds. And also the sort of silver lining of the pandemic too is like access to both users and testers and audience and people to download the app, and also different investors was more democratized because everyone's on Zoom. We didn't have to fly out to San Francisco to talk to the West Coast. I don't have to fly to Israel to have this great conversation with you. And so it was actually incredibly beneficial for our business and also just like the brand and what we're worried about, because instead of just the three of us being our target audience, we had actual human beings like on the app in its early beta, ugly forms where like, this is great, this is not great. And we were able to raise enough funds to be able to like finesse the app, really fix it and update it and make it in its current form. And then we launched it last month. So that the pandemic was like at first terrifying for the business, and then incredibly important to how we were able to iterate the app. Because it's a community app, we want all of our features to be useful and exciting for the community. So anybody who would respond being like, hey, what about this feature? Hey, this isn't working. Like we have iterated the app based on feedback. Like we want the app to change with the people on the app. And so that's what I'm most excited about, the sort of experiment, is like, which micro communities are going to be the biggest? Are we going to have a massive kosher audience, a massive busy parents audience, like a massive keto audience? Like, what is it? And so it's amazing to watch these little micro communities pop up. Some of them are like, pandemic cooks, people who, like me, I always used to say like the best thing I make is reservations, which was true for a really long time. But part of me feeling authentic about this experience was like teaching myself how to cook through launching this business. And then that I doubled down on that in the pandemic, and now I cook every day, and I love it. It's like, it's meditative for me as opposed to a chore. So yeah, the pandemic we were one of the silver lining businesses. I think, it's been obviously tough in a lot of ways, but like it was crucial to us getting the sort of feedback and investment we needed from like the people we're trying to serve.
Right, right. I mean, of course, a lot of industries suffered from COVID, and restaurants were one, but deliveries and cooking at home, that's really, I also enjoyed. I mean, I don't really cook. I say always I don't have time. But when we had COVID, we had time, right?
Yeah.
And I discovered the pleasure of cooking. It was really something that I had forgotten or, put aside because I don't have time.
Same.
Uh,
And that's always how I approached it, as opposed to like, it's better for my wallet. It's better for my body. It's been really meditative. Yeah. All the things that I pretended weren't part of cooking are now part of my life.
Exactly. No, no, that's for sure. And so, I mean, I want to address the fact that you're the only woman founder out of this startup, but from two different angles: from the startup angle, but also from the food industry, right? Because there is a misconception, I think, that people that are cooking are always women or mothers, but really, when you look at the big chefs of the world, they're always men. And so, the first question is there room for women in that world of cooking, or is it more like a men's world? And also the startup world, like, is it more a men's world with investors and founders? And how did you find, how was your journey as a woman co-founder in this experience?
Yeah, totally. It's been amazing and fascinating at the same time. I think also to start, I grew up in a household with only brothers. I grew up like the only girl in like so many situations. And I'm a middle child. So like, being the only girl is pretty good, honestly, in my family. And so I grew up lucky that like being the only girl was kind of a special thing and a good thing. And my parents really raised us that like with like no difference in terms of the three of you are equally as capable as the other. And Guy, our other co-founder, who's my, not blood brother, but also has a sister and grew up really close to her. So I think I, started this business with two people who just like don't think about the fact that, you know what I mean? Like we're just all smart and excited to do this together. So I think that is just like a place of like a privileged place to start. That is also the reason I was like excited to do this. And also like it motivated me, I wanted to be able to take up space in this industry. And like so many women do cook, so many women do work in food. I'm part of this, I'm a member of Cherry Bomb, which I love. It's this like amazing sort of food community of women in food. And like and if you look at all of the different sort of consumer packaged good brands coming up in the pandemic and new startups, like there's plenty of room for women in food. There's also this sort of current movement in the venture capital world of like, oh, wow, like we don't invest in women a lot. Here are all these reasons we should. And it's like, why don't you just invest because it's a good idea? Like, yeah. And so I think I use it to my strength. I think people often will either underestimate me or sort of just assume that I have a different role. But Josh, the CEO, likes to say I might be the CEO, but Rachel's in charge. And I really think that's true. And like, I happen to work with like all men who really like respect where I'm coming from, but I also think that's a good thing. Like I want it to be in the world that like, look, you can have an incredibly like healthy, equal, egalitarian like business partnership with a bunch of men and like one woman and the other way around. And like, I want that to go out into the world as like, hey, like, this is not like a weakness or a strength. It just is. Right. And like, one of the things that I want to do when we raise more money is like hire a bunch of people who like don't look like me, who don't look like Josh, and just like really have a bunch more like variety and perspectives. But I think like I've just learned a lot. I think being underestimated is incredibly powerful. It gives you a chance to blow people's minds by just doing the thing you were already going to do. And also like people pay attention to you less, so that when you come up with something amazing, they're like, wait a minute, what? So I think, being underestimated, often people feel demoralized by it. I think it's great. It gives you a chance to sort of just like focus on what you're doing and like blow people's minds, as opposed to them expecting something that you sort of don't deliver on. I also think like I've just never been afraid of being the only woman in the room because of how I grew up in my family, and like just being told that like you are capable, and if someone says otherwise, it's because they're wrong, not you. And I think, I'm so lucky that I was raised that way. But yeah, it's also challenging. Sometimes people say stuff to you and call you like honey and sweetheart in a meeting that they wouldn't say to someone else. And so I'll say it back to them. And it's really disarming, I think. Someone once said, oh, thanks, honey, that was a good pitch. And I said, no. And I said, oh, no, you're welcome, sweetheart. And he just looked at me like, what? And I said, well, if you're going to say it, I'm going to say it too. And, we ended up talking after, and he was like, I really respect that. I don't think I realized like how condescending that was. And I was like, you're welcome.
Wow, I like that. Yeah.
But it motivates me, like, yes, we work with a ton of contractors and freelancers, and a lot of them are women, which is also great for me. And it's like, and there's such and my brother and Guy also say like, we need your perspective on food just as much as we need my perspective on food. And so I think I have always embraced it as like, it just is, right? And like, but the thing I'm so excited about in food is that most of the people that I've met becoming an entrepreneur have been other women, which is so cool. And like, I need that perspective. And it's so wonderful to be able to sort of commiserate with people who don't work with me or for me, but totally get where I'm coming from. So it's like this like safe space that's just mine, that kind of has nothing to do with my co-founders. And that's been really amazing because it's just been such a supportive, helpful place. I've met so many people that are now my friends, people that we work with, all because like being a female entrepreneur is more rare. And therefore, like, I think there's more community around it. And like, my whole job is to figure out how we build this community. And like, I just feel like I have such a more natural community to reach out to. Being Jewish as well, like that's huge. We got a big write-up in Jewish Insider. And like, it's just been so fun and easy to like reach out to the Jewish community and like the female community. And like the fact that we're talking is like proof of that.
Right, exactly. No, that's for sure. I mean, you said that you were, interested in looking at specific communities, and you spoke about the kosher community. And maybe before we end that, it's. I mean, we could talk for so many more hours about what you're doing, but I do want to touch up about this concept of super user, right? You said that you're looking specifically into micro communities to find those super users. So maybe you want to touch a word on that. Like, what do you call super users, and how, if people are listening and they do want to become super user, how can they do that?
Yeah, awesome. Great question. Thank you. Yeah, so it's just so interesting and cool to look at the data now that the app is live and like nerd out about like what recipes are people liking, what recipes are people uploading, like what are they clicking on, what are they excited about, which pieces of the app. And we realize that like there's the way we think about it is like how do people approach food, how do people search for food in our app, and a lot of it is like beyond dietary restrictions or like dietary needs. It's sort of just like it's your POV on food. And so super users are people who like upload a lot of their own recipes into our app and share them in our social environments, and people who like use the app for X amount of time per day or week. And so we get in touch with those people and we say, hey, like, we love what you're uploading. Your recipes are amazing. We would love to verify your profile like the way that you do on Instagram so that you can sort of bump up in the algorithm and bump up in the app so that people can see like you are sort of like a premium Manna collaborator. And then we also promote their recipes and their stories on our social channels and our newsletter. So for instance, we just got in touch with this amazing user who goes by Trader Joe's 5 items or less. And she's a busy mom. She's a 6-month-old baby. And she goes to Trader Joe's and makes recipes with 5 items from Trader Joe's or less. I love her recipes. I'm obsessed with Trader Joe's. We met on Instagram because she saw the Instagram thing. I DM'd her after she got on our app and was uploading like all these beautiful, amazing recipes. And I was like, I would love for you to be like an official Manna collaborator. And now she is. She's a
Wow.
super user and she shares recipes almost every other day. And it's so cool because, you know, she's just like a regular person in the world. She doesn't have a big social following. She's just like doing what she's doing, but she wants to share her experience. And like, we want to give you like an ecosystem and a marketplace to be able to do that because we want our community to be the stars of the app, right? We have content from different celebrity chefs. We have content from different food brands. Because we want everyone to feel like it's not just user generated. It's got like a mix of everything you want. But we also want to sort of democratize the playing field that like, if you are a home cook and you're trying and you have something that's delicious, you should be rewarded for that. And that should be shared.
Wow, amazing. I love that. So we're going to get to our final question. We have a tradition where we ask at the end, the guests to share one tip. And since you're in the startup world, and you started with an idea and now you're launched an app and you're already at your pre-seed or seed funding, so many rounds of funding, not the first one. What is your one tip for someone who has an idea of a startup and or of a business and needs to get it out there? What is the tip that you can share?
Yeah, I would say get really comfortable with uncertainty and change. I
Right.
think it's just, I think, like I said earlier in our chat, like you just have to have so much conviction in your idea, but you also have to be incredibly flexible and open to understanding how to market that idea and what people need from you to feel comfortable becoming a member, becoming an investor, etc. And so much of that is just like trial and error. We have tried and failed at so many things. We have tried and succeeded at so many things. And so much of it is just like, I believe it's like, if there's someone who's really smart out there who has answers to the questions that you have, go talk to them, go find them. And so I think like my tip is just like research, network, and community. And it's all this, I keep saying the word community, but that's it. Like we built our board of advisors through people we knew. We originally crowdfunded on WeFunder. We raised $150,000 from crowdfunding just by plugging our own networks. I also think you have to sort of, for me, it took me a while to feel like not so icky about like constantly trying to promote it and ask people. But you know what? It's like, I'm not asking people for just like money or a hand. Like I'm asking you to invest in what I'm doing and like take part in this journey and like be part of something that like isn't just about me, but like could be useful and exciting for you too. So I think like reframing my mindset around like having to be your own sort of like PR person, hype man, etc., was I think the biggest shift that really I needed. And also it's like very humbling. Like uncertainty is guaranteed. So how you respond to it, in my opinion, is how you're either going to thrive or fail.
Right. I love that. Wow. Thank you so much, Rachel. This has been so inspiring. I love the journey. I'm waiting to hear and see amazing things because I'm sure that this is only the beginning. And thank you so much for your time and for your inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. This has been great. And before I sign off, thanks for everyone who's listening. The app is out. It's Manna Cooking. It's in the App Store. If you have an iPhone, we're going to build Android later, and it's free. So anybody who likes to play with tech or food, please download it. And I answer all my emails. So if you ever want to chat, I'm around.
Amazing. And we'll put, of course, the link to the app in the podcast, and people can definitely download it. I just did, and I love it already. So thank you so much.
Thank you.